Tarot. We have already covered the history, origin, and some of the symbology of the cards, but how does it continue unfolding? Today, we will continue our dive into the major arcana cards, from their meanings to what they can teach us about life and the human spirit. Thanks for joining us today, Beneath the Grove. If you have not already viewed the first part, which includes an introduction to tarot and the first phase of the major arcana, be sure to check it out. The second phase of the major arcana is one focused on personal transformations. This is less earthly focused than the first phase. It's a time where one is asking themselves questions of the spirit and the celestial realms, the questions of life and the after, therefore giving birth to a new perspective, one bound on the knowledge that comes from internal and external forces. Self-introspection is a large theme in the second phase, with cards like the Hermit and Death representing that looking within can bring us to a rebirth, a better understanding of one's energies, and how to remain forgiving of the outside world. The phase begins with strength and ends with temperance, illustrating that one needs deep amounts of courage to feel and control one's feelings. The Strength card represents confronting yourself without fear. The lion symbolizes feelings, fears, desires, and confusions, suppressed by the ego in its attempt to control life. Inner passions emerge, the first step to going beyond the ego. This is the first part of becoming an awakened being, one free of self-judgment and outer misunderstanding, and one rooted in knowledge of the self. The woman dressed in white is petting the lion tentatively, showing compassion, self-acceptance, and purity in motive. The infinity symbol shows an open connection with the celestial and divine realms, also connecting with the card's number 8, number symbolizing the infinite, balance, and abundance. When the card is upright, it symbolizes the ability to face life, and particularly some difficult problem or time of change, with hope and eagerness. It shows a person's strength from within, experiencing life passionately yet peacefully, without being controlled or carried away by those passions. Finding strength is to begin or continue a difficult project despite fear and emotional strain. If strength appears in connection with the Chariot, it can signify an alternative to force and willpower, especially if the Chariot is reversed. The two cards can also symbolize complementary sides, the best configuration being strength as the position of the inner self, and the Chariot in the position of the outer, someone who acts powerfully but with a sense of calm. When reversed, it indicates weakness, courage to face life's failures. The seeker likely feels overwhelmed and pessimistic. It can also signify a torment from within. The bestial side of the lion breaks away from the unity of spirit and sensuality. In turn, the passions become an enemy, threatening to destroy the conscious personality and the life that it has built for itself. Strength is necessary when it comes to looking within. If one is weak in moments of great change, they are limiting themselves from the potential of that change. The authors Wade and Smith wrote, "The idea of randomness is really very modern. It developed out of the dogma that cause and effect is the only valid connections between two events. Events without this logical joining are random, that is meaningless. Previously, people thought in terms of correspondence. Events or patterns in one area of existence corresponded to patterns in other areas. The pattern of tea leaves in the bottom of a cup corresponds to the outcome of a battle. The lines on a person's hands corresponds to the events in one's life. Everything is connected." Approaching life with the understanding of interconnectedness can give one new powers, a theme that will continue throughout the remaining phases. The strengths gained are to aid the seeker if they are to enter the introspective realm. The hermit means a withdrawal from the outer world to activate the unconscious mind. It can also signify a teacher who will help us find our way. It signifies a transition. Through the techniques of meditation, we can hear parts of our inner psyche. It is a card that symbolizes deep self-reflection, looking within. The number 9 signifies wisdom and self-completion. When upright, it represents a withdrawal from outer concerns. This can translate to a physical removal or not. What matters is the inner transfer of attention from getting and spending to a person's inner needs. It requires an emotional withdrawal from other people and from activities once thought to be all important. The card carries a sense of deliberate purpose, and with the image of the old man in the center with his head tilted down, the card symbolizes maturity and a knowledge of what really matters in a person's life. The light represents the guidance, internal and divine. The assistance is from a definite guide, sometimes a psychic guide from within, but more often a real person who will help in self-discoveries. It may be telling you to look carefully at the people around you. When reversed, it means a corruption of the idea of withdrawal. It can indicate a fear of other people. If one withdraws from society as a retreat, then the fact of the withdrawal becomes more and more dominant, leading to phobias and paranoia. Sometimes, depending on context, the reversed hermit can mean that at this moment, the person needs to become more involved with other people. Because right side up, the hermit signifies maturity, upside down, the hermit can mean a Peter Pan attitude to life. The person hangs on to meaningless activities, or else imitates childlike enthusiasms as a way of avoiding responsibilities of doing something with their life. The Wheel of Fortune is a card that symbolizes luck, the symbology on the card being deeply influenced by Egyptian imagery. The wheel appears to be in the heavens, surrounded by winged beings, the wheel in the center illustrating the divine forces involved in one's fate. The meaning of the wheel refers to the random turnings of luck, which, while they may look like meaningless ups and downs, are really fate. With the wheel, we come to ask why and how anything happens at all in the universe. It represents the mystery of fate or karma. When the card is upright, it signifies some change in the circumstances of a person's life and that person's willingness to adapt. The seeker would likely not understand what has caused this change. There might be no direct reason that anyone can see, and in fact, the person is likely not to be responsible for the change, yet the wheel turns. The important thing about change is the reaction. Do we accept the new situation and adapt to it? Do we use it as an opportunity to find some meaning and value in it? It can indicate the ability to pierce through the mystery of events to find a greater understanding of life. The end of a love affair, despite its pain, can give greater self-knowledge. When reversed, it signifies struggle against events, usually doomed because the change has happened, and life will always win against the personality that tries to oppose it. If the seeker has already reacted passively to whatever life has done to them, then the wheel can signify a way to a new awareness of responsibility for their own life. The Justice card is found at the center of all the major arcana cards. It represents the balance between understanding and action. The sword indicates resolve and the idea that wisdom is like a sword piercing through the illusion of events to find the inner meaning. Two-edged sword symbolizes choice. The scales represent the perfect balance of past and future, not in time, but in clear sight of justice. The Wheel of Fortune represents a vision of a person's life, the events, who you are, and what you've made of yourself. Justice indicates an understanding of that vision. The way to understanding lies in responsibility. As long as we believe that our past lives just happened, that we do not bring ourselves into existence through everything we do, then the past remains a mystery and the future an endlessly turning wheel, empty of meaning. But when we accept that every event in our lives has helped us to form our characters, and that in the future we will continue to create ourselves through our actions, then the sword of wisdom cuts through the mystery. It is important to note that the world is a great interplay of opposites, a constantly turning wheel of light and dark, life and death. At the end of the wheel is a stationary point around which the opposites endlessly revolve. Justice is the stationary point. When the card is upright, it indicates that events have worked out in the way they were meant to work out. That is, what is happening to you comes from situations and decisions in the past. You have what you deserve. The card indicates a need and a possibility for seeing the truth of this outcome. It signifies absolute honesty. At the same time, it shows the possibility that your actions in the future can be changed by a lesson learned in the present situation. The card carries meanings of honesty, fairness, and correct actions, a just decision, though not necessarily the decision a person might prefer. When reversed, it indicates dishonesty with yourself and others. It shows an unwillingness to see the meaning of events, and that the seeker is missing some opportunity for a greater understanding of themselves and their life. On the outer level, it indicates dishonesty and unfair actions or decisions. Sometimes it can refer to others who are unfair to us. The reverse meaning can also refer to an unjust legal decision or bad treatment from someone. On the other hand, we must not allow the suggestion of unfairness to act as an excuse for denying our responsibility for what happens to us. Justice reverse sometimes reflects the attitude, "It's unfair, look how everybody treats me," but it reminds the seeker that nothing can save you but yourself. The Hanged Man is a card that represents perspective, specifically taking a different view or perspective of one's life. It is a card with a direct image of peace and understanding. It involves the release of emotions the seeker may have had locked up for years. When upright, the Hanged Man is upside down. It bears the message of independence. Like the Fool, which signifies doing what you sensed was best, even if other people think it's foolish, the Hanged Man indicates being who you are, even if others think you have everything backwards. It symbolizes the feeling of being deeply connected to life and can mean the peace that comes after some difficult trial. When reversed, the card signifies one's inability to get free of social pressure rather than listen to their inner selves. The seeker expects others and demands of them. Their awareness of life always remains secondhand, never a direct experience, but only a series of stereotypes, like the person who models his or her behavior on the orders of parents or the actions of movie stars. The card reverse also represents fighting your inner self in some way. It can mean the seeker tries to deny some basic part of themselves, or simply one who cannot accept reality, and who, in some way or another, is constantly battling life. The Death card is the 13th of the major arcana and signifies harsh change, not only death, but also rebirth. This can be seen with the figure of death cloaked in black riding a white horse. It is the bringing of immense change from personal discovery and sacrifice. This card illustrates the precise moment at which one gives up the old mass and allows a transformation to take place. Death is the death of the ego, which for many can be scary because they do not know what to expect afterward. When upright, death signifies a time of change. Often, it indicates a fear of change. In its most positive aspect, it shows a clearing away of old habits and rigidity to allow a new life to emerge. In its most negative aspect, it indicates a crippling fear of physical death. When reversed, it means being stuck in on old habits. A sense of a sluggish, boring life masks a sometimes desperate battle of the ego to avoid change. Seeing a reverse card in a spread indicates that death, with its subsequent rebirth, is not only a possibility, but also in a sense, a necessity. The moment has come to die. By drowning us in lethargy, the ego prevents awareness of this fact from coming to consciousness. Inertia, boredom, and depression often conceal one's inner terrors. Temperance is the final card of the second phase of the major arcana. This card represents a true and proper sense to all situations as they arise. The seeker, who has released his or her inner self, symbolized by the second line of tarot, has moderation and the ability to combine different sides of life, especially all of one's different personalities. The angel has 1 foot on land and 1 foot on water. The water represents the unconscious, and the land symbolizes the real world of events. She links these two realms together. The 2 cups signify her grasp on controlling energies in the earthly realm, being deliberate with oneself. When the card is upright, the card's meanings begin with moderation, balance in all things, and taking the middle path. When in a spread, it means the right action, doing the correct thing in whatever situation arises. Very often, this means doing nothing. Intemperate person always needs to be doing something, but very often a situation requires one to simply wait. The card also signifies mixing elements, blending activities and feelings to produce a sense of harmony and peace. If a reading shows a person split between 2 things, then temperance may indicate finding a balance to bring these things together. When reversed, it indicates a wildness going to extremes. In temperance, this is because the person lacks the inner awareness to know what is appropriate to a situation. It can act as a warning that you have allowed your life to become fragmented and that you are sliding from one extreme to another. The reverse of the card can also indicate failure in the great task of letting old habits and fears die away into the past. It may be telling the seeker, calm down and avoid extremes on a simple level, and in its deepest sense, it sends one back to strength to begin that long, painful, frightening, but essentially joyous process of death and rebirth. This concludes the second phase of the major arcana. If you are interested in learning more, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, posting daily videos about history, occultism, and mythology. Thank you, and we'll see you next time here beneath the grove.